Woohoo! Okay, to the cloud. We're here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to SASS Mass. It's August 11th, and we meet for SASS every Sunday. The members of our programs, foundations, and the Guild participate, and we post it to our public YouTube channel for anyone that wants to catch the replay. Bright and Dark now has an app space where you can join our free community. And so go to our website, brightanddark.org, and you can click join the free community. And it will get you set up in the app space so you can stay in touch with us and catch our lives. One very exciting announcement that we have planned is we're going to have a Zoom party on September 6th at it's going to be 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to celebrate Bright and Dark's birthday. And so we have we're just going to kind of get together and hang out and celebrate. And we don't have like super anything formally planned, but that could totally change in the next couple of weeks where we have something. But right now it's more of just a hangout, celebration, have fun, get together. And anyone that's in the app space is invited to join us. So it's kind of open to everyone. And for some of you, you may not have got to hang out with us yet in a meeting. And so this could be your first opportunity if that sounds fun for you. Yes, and so I'm going to post our terms of engagement in the chat. And yeah, that's pretty much our only announcement. We're halfway, well, not quite halfway, almost halfway through the month. Foundations members will participate in Witch Work Circle on the 21st. And for any new witches watching in the foundations, we do have foundations dedication on the 15th. And if you have any questions or you want more information, you can always reach us at support@brightanddark.org via email. Or if you go to our website, you can use our little chat function and that will get you to us as well for any questions. So here we go. Ta-da! Let's see. I think Jen Marie is having audio and visual because she was popping in and out. So if anyone would like to start, feel free to raise your hand using the raised hand function. If anything's been on your mind, Taryn, hello.
Hey, just real quick, I just wanted to talk about that cosmic link that my ex seems to have. It's not anything that he's doing, I know that, but it just happens way too often for it to just be a mere coincidence. And when I talk about it to, friends and family, they just laugh or roll their eyes and think I'm being silly. But he uses money and my support to control me or attempt to control me and all that other stuff. But the thing is that when he does it, it always just coincidentally happens to occur when I'm planning something, like when I'm one step away from accomplishing things, or like, for instance, he did it in June and messed up my plans, and now he's messing up my plans for September. And there's just like no way that he could know this, because I stopped telling people anything I do just so that it doesn't get back to him. So my question is, like, if there is some kind of cosmic thing, how do I break it, or can I break it, or what can I do about his timing? I guess is the question.
So give me one moment to post the terms of engagement in the chat, but I do have a weigh-in on it. Does anyone else have a weigh-in? Whit, are you coming in? Are you okay? Whit's coming in.
I am attempting to come in. My goodness. I was like, where's the raise hand? Where's my mute button? Um, so, um, Karen, I know you're looking for some advice. Are you also open to some poking and some additional questions about the situation?
Oh yeah, definitely, always. I wouldn't ask if I didn't want.
Well, I just want to make sure, um, because I mean, it sounds like it's a really difficult situation, right? Um, but kind of what's coming up for me is like looking at the perspectives of this, of, it sounds like, where you're sitting right now is he's doing this to me to mess all this stuff up. And he may be, you know, but looking at your perspective of it, of how is this potentially happening for you? And what could the universe be trying to point out or show you during these times as well, too?
Yeah, after my initial panic, not really panic, but whatever you want to call it, my emotional reaction, I started looking at it at the for me perspective, and I'm just not finding it in this situation because, like September, they want to come out here, him and his wife, and I just don't want them here. I mean, we don't have any kind of relationship, so they're not the kind of people I want to be around. So,
Yeah.
But the only thing I'm really getting now is like in November of 2022. Like I told him then, like, I'm done. You do what you're gonna do. I'm gonna act accordingly. But I want nothing else to do with you. I haven't talked to him, actually since then, and so I don't know. If he wants to see his son, I told him what he needs to do to make that happen, but they're not doing that. So I don't know. The only thing I can come up with is, like, for me, it's like put up or shut up. Like, now I've given them the ultimatum, and so now I have to back it up and not give in like my normal trauma response is to just give in so that he doesn't withhold money. But now I'm in a situation where I don't have to worry about, well, not that I don't have to worry about it, but I'm not going to get evicted or anything like that if he doesn't pay me. So first time I'm in a position where I can say, fine, don't pay me. I'll just let everybody know that you've decided you're no longer participating in, the care of your child. So, yeah. So I'm working on it for me, but it's like decades of this. We've been divorced since 1987.
I find it interesting, Karen, that you use the word ultimatum when it sounds like you're setting boundaries.
Yeah, it technically, yeah. I set a boundary. Now I have to, enforce it. Or so like I said, the only thing I'm really coming up with is that, like, my guides are saying, okay, you said you're done. Now prove it. So I feel a little bit better about it if that's the situation. If that's just my guide saying, okay, you keep saying this, now prove it. And I prove it, and then we're good. Then everything will be all right.
Okay. Yeah, and it sounds like, not that I've been in your situation, but I have still am right now working through some other, like, boundary stuff, of, like, the universe is giving you that opportunity to practice the things that you've been working on.
Yeah.
I'm going to set my boundaries, and I'm going to hold to them. And I'm in a place that I could do that now too. Cause like you said, there's years of trauma, right? From your relationship.
Yeah, and they don't understand why I don't want to engage any longer.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to. I
Yeah.
don't want to make it about them, so I'm trying not to.
Yeah,
make
and
it
I
about
think
them.
like you know, the hardest thing that we are working through right now is that social conditioning and like our trauma responses of how can we change how we've, you know, uh that pattern of responding that we've had in the past, right? um Especially with people who are so like, and that's what I find is the hardest thing to do is like with the newer people, y'all, like I could set boundaries and like of course you all really respect them too, you know, it's great, woohoo, I could do it. So hard to do it with people who you have decades, right, of like responding in a certain way or giving into or not setting those boundaries even, you know. um and then setting that up, it feels like you're doing something really wrong then. And
Yeah, and like
I
they
feel for
were
that.
supposed to. They were supposed to. Not supposed to, but like they wanted to. They were going. And again, I don't want to get too much into them, the drama of it, but his wife is as much an issue as he is. Like, and so I know this is her pushing it because she can't stand not knowing where I'm at or where I'm living or how well I'm living. So I know like she's the one pushing the issue, and now they want to bring, my oldest two out like to force me. Like I've told him he can see his son, but I'm not participating. You know what I mean? Like I'm not hanging out with them. I'm not, if he wants to take his son and spend time with his son, he can do that, but I'm not participating. And so it kind of forced me to, and that's what I just like. I don't get their perspective of that. I mean, if someone tells you, if I was to say to any person, anybody else, like I don't want anything to do with you. I think you're a horrible human being. Get away from me. Most people would kind of take the hint, but for them, that's just like everyday stuff. So there's just no like talking to them or trying to work it out or any of that perspective. So I do need to just. I'm hoping that I'm hoping that this is before me where I can see my boundary thing, but I just kind of want to. I don't know. So I appreciate that.
Hello. So this kind of my take on it without even needing to kind of get into like the specifics of it. Um, it kind of brings up two things that you can consider. One is like communication, and one is, I mean, well, three, I mean, agree with everything Wit and you talked about the boundary setting. But with the boundary setting comes the shadow work. And it's exactly, not exactly, but the process that you can use is similar to what we do every month. And like that's why we do the journal prompt with like what, sorry, my computer is making like a weird noise. Lots of weird things are happening this day. So one second. I think maybe I have something in the background. Sorry. Okay. Go away. There we go. I fixed it. Woo. Okay, sorry about that. So the engagement of feeling your feelings and kind of seeing what feelings come up as only in relation to you. As so like working through feelings of like these people are not respecting my boundaries, and then how does that make me feel? And actually like going through like the shutter exercise with it, going through even journaling prompt about it, because what we're trying to do is identifying where the foothold is, right? And I know that a lot of y'all probably have seen other witches talks about like cord cuttings and different things like that. And I saw someone, Jen Marie had talked about a little bit of this on her TikTok in like bits, but I also listened to another content creator talk about it that really aligned with kind of the way that I see it as well, which is cord cutting is like the end process of like engaging with the whole bit of it, right? So it's like identifying where the foothold is. And that's really all about you and your like relationship to kind of what is happening and to these people. But you've already declared that like these aren't people that you want to participate with, but yet we have the relationship that there is some engagement because of their connection to your child. So there's that piece, and then there's like that financial piece that you said. Um, but it is like what it comes down to is like just the shadow work and like the feelings that are coming up with you about this, and there's something there that is for you, but that doesn't mean it won't be like kind of what we consider like more hard and difficult to like go through that process. And it doesn't even, when we go through this process, it's not my belief that you have to engage the other person. Like you don't need to talk to them. You set your boundaries with them, but you don't need to like, in terms of like working it out, you can work through that all on your own because it's all about more like the lesson and the like experience of it rather than needing to repair a relationship unless you want to repair a relationship with that person. But it's more about like what are like the core emotions are that you're feeling when you're talking about this. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, I know like I mention this book all the time and we have, but nonviolent communication, I just feel like maybe has some good like tips in there. And there might be other books out there. This is just the one that I know of. In terms of when people are pushing up against our boundaries and when we are trying to, you know, communicate in a way that still like represents who we are, but but effective in communicating what we want. I just find that book to have been very helpful, and I like can incorporate it into like my practice. Um, so I just wanted to add that piece. I'll pause there, Taryn, if anything came up or
Yeah. Yeah, no, I that makes sense, and I, I've been trying to keep the focus on me. So for you to say that just, reinforces that hopefully I'm on the right track. Um, but yeah, our youngest son is disabled and he's an adult, but that's the only reason why we're still connected. Otherwise, it would be
right.
been done over with. So, but yeah,
And
it doesn't have anything to do with his daily care or never, he only sees him every 2 or 3 years anyway. So, but yeah,
so
okay.
when you say that they said they were coming on this day and you replied no, like that doesn't work for me, what happens then? Like why so like yes, like so what's happening now for you? And what does that bring up? What kind like in terms of like how you feel about it?
Um, okay, say that again. I'm sorry, I just went blank.
So like just seeing like looking at kind of the emotional piece, right? And so just in the scenario where someone said, "Okay, I'm coming this day," and you said, "No, that day doesn't work for me." So the boundary's been set, and now and where are you at like now with it? Like um what are the feelings that come up with like setting that boundary? And
Well, it's working through that old like trauma where knowing like if I say no, they'll retaliate. And so right now I'm just like processing that and where the emotional mental aspect of them retaliate. I mean, financially if they retaliate, I'm okay. But
Mhm.
that's just the emotional mental aspect of it. Like I know I'm okay, but emotionally there's still that, pain that he can do that.
Right. And it's the so like the one like just giving some examples because examples are helpful for me because I think if you like as you engage through this process, which you are, usually things kind of become revealed and like clearer. Um, as to the intention being that, this is something that you're not looking to hold on to anymore, that you are looking to release, and as part of your practice, you can incorporate that. And then like what I'm hearing is that there's like the fear attached to it, and probably a million
Yes,
other emotions, but would that be like accurate? And
yeah,
so like for you, and in terms of like digging into like where like a foothold could be, is like when you're talking about like what is that connection, that would be my answer to your question is like it's that. It's holding on to kind of
my
that
emotional
fear.
connect.
Exactly. And I'm
Okay,
not
yeah.
saying yes by any
No, you're
means.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
I can take it.
And I'm not saying by any means that this is like an easy process. I have a situation within my family where I am also afraid of fearful of a family member. And so it's something that is like I call them like the deeper shadow work. Like it's a deeper one, that has layers, and it there's like you kind of uncover one thing, it's like how we say like you kind of keep uncovering it, but in a way that's all happening for you because we are getting through it, like just sorting through it. And so I'm just saying that in that way I resonate with you in that I understand that it's not like when I feel like just sometimes when we talk about it, because when it comes down to like, kind of feeling our feelings and working away through that, sometimes I think like, but that sounds so easy, but it doesn't. Like when I think about the situation is hard, and how I kind of sort through that. However, going through the process of like again similar to what we do in the monthly journal prompt is like getting to what we're really feeling about it and the core feelings and seeing like where those like attachments are. And it's all about that really is like for me, and that has helped me in those types of situations. So yeah, Whit said it's really one of the hardest things to do. So, and we're here to support you as well. Like, and so you do have support and you do have a community that is holding space for you as you do it. Um, so you know that, Taryn.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm good. If somebody wants to go, I'm satisfied.
You want to get off the hot seat?
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, but
Well,
there was
I'm
a
good.
gentleman. Okay. Like there was a gentleman that, that I mentioned that I was like watching. And like I said, Jemry has mentioned this before, and we get a lot of not recently, but there was like it's like we get these like similar questions that come up like during specific times that like these patterns. Um, but talking about like how do I like do a cord cutting or release this, and like the process of the cord cutting to me and like would happen like at the end of your process with it as kind of like your final release, but you've digged into like the shadow work and the emotional piece of it, and then like a cord cutting ritual would happen like at the end of that. That's how I would engage with it. um so and Jen, thank you. Jemery is back. Hello. Your
Sorry, I
internet
didn't
is
realize I still had mine on, but somebody else wants to go.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you, Whit.
And of course it's okay to we can bounce back and forth and bop back and forth um with questions. If someone like want to totally change topics, that's okay. Coral, hello.
Hi, I have a question. I found a bird's nest this week and it was really fun to find, but I'm like, what do I do with this? Like, it seems auspicious that I found it and I really love it. So I don't want to just be like, oh, okay, throw that back into nature. Bye. But I was just curious if anybody has any experience or knowledge about like what finding a bird's nest can mean and also how you might use it.
So, certainly you can like write, you can use the iGoogly for as far as like traditional correspondence. And someone here may have that info too. I personally don't have experience with that, but I was wondering, do you have any synchronicities or connection with it, like with the bird's nest itself or birds in any way?
No, not really. Um, yeah, no.
I'm not on mute. So like when you found it, and like what were you experiencing at the time, or like what did it feel like? You said it felt like auspicious, but like any data or information around like when you found it, what was maybe going on at that time, and like how you felt when you picked it up or when you were engaging with it?
I was just walking to my mailbox and it was a windy day, so I think it had blown off of, I think it was like a last year's nest, but it was like still really intact. And yeah, it was just like laying on the ground, like completely intact. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like it was just right there in my path. And um, so I don't know, it felt like because I've found like partial bird's nests before, but I've never found like a full one. Like a bird could have been living in it that day, except there was like no feathers in it anymore. But um, so yeah, I was like, oh, this is a nice gift from like Mother Nature. Like I like this. Um, so yeah, it just felt like, oh, like if nothing else, it was just like, oh, this is a lovely gift. Like, thank you. I like it. I appreciate it. But then I'm kind of like, and what do I do with it now? I don't know. It's just sitting on my back porch.
Wit has a way.
I'm really slow at hitting buttons today, so thanks for bearing with me, everyone. Um, I I personally have a synchronicity with feathers and birds. Um, that's what my spirit guide, my spirit team uses to communicate with me and point things out to me. Um, but so like leaning into that to see if there's anything with that as well too. But I also have, I don't know how many things that I have found that have spoken to me, that I have felt. There's something about keeping them. Um, and I keep them without knowing what I'm going to do with them. But uh, what I have found is that there's something coming up in a little bit that I'll be like, oh, that's the perfect use for this. Um, and so I think the feeling of, oh, this was like meant for me is very valid. And you don't have to necessarily know, like in my opinion, you don't have to know exactly what you're going to use it for to be able to keep it, because it might be, so what it does is like you don't have enough data yet to know what you're going to use it for, right? And so like I think it's really cool, and clearly that was like a whoa kind of moment. um and making sure that you write that down and date it so that when you do say, oh, this is what it's for, you can go back and see if there's any connection to what like was happening on that day. But yeah, I just wanted to say, that was a lot of words to say. You don't have to know why you're keeping it to keep it right now. So
That's a really good point. Thanks, Whit. Yeah, I don't have to know right now, but I just know it seems like a good thing and a lovely gift to find, and I'll hold on to it. See what happens. I guess I'll keep you updated when that like comes around where I'm like, oh, now I know.
yes, please do. And sometimes it might not even be keeping it for yourself as well too, you know, maybe if it's on your back porch, like I've had times where I'm like, well, that saw a squirrel walk off with it or something like that. Um, and it was like, well, clearly that's what the squirrel needed at that point, and this is where they needed to get it from. So
When I am like looking for messages, I kind of start like with, I guess, what would be considered like mundane, kind of in terms of I had like this magical experience, but like what does it mean? And so like when I would, if I like think of a bird nest, like what does that mean to a bird? You know, so that's like their home, that's like their safety and security, especially where you found one that's like, intact. And absolutely like agree with Wit. So many times you like find something and then like later you're like pinged with it and you're like, oh yes, like here we go. And then all the dots like start connecting. Um, so yeah, but it is a beautiful gift.
Yes, it is. I'm excited about it. But okay, that's all. Thank you so much.
Yes, and of course you can go down the rabbit hole of the internet and we'll give you 5,000 signs of what that means. But I will say that can be, a tool to use. And like when I'm doing that, there are definitely some times where if I'm researching something, I'm obviously like kind of considerate of what source I'm using, but like also as like an intuitive kind of little game, I do really feel into what I'm reading and I'm asking myself, does this resonate or not? And is like one way to kind of see like what pings you like when there's a lot of information on like a topic, so you can kind of as you're reading, like I never take like the first explanation if I'm like no, that's not it, and then I just like kind of keep digging until like I know like in like I'll be able to feel that it's a yes. Like I mean sometimes I work with my body sometimes in like as if it's a pendulum, if you've ever tried that. But I can kind of feel a yes or feel a no. But actually, just a little side quest. Some people engage like a pendulum, and like where it can circle around for yes or like a back and forth for no, or however your yes or your no is. But sometimes you could like do that with your own body. Like kind of I do like a little grounding or whatever, and like I could maybe lean forward for yes or back for no or whatever the case may be. It's just a little thing that you can look into if that feels cool for you. But just kind of feeling into your body about like what information does resonate, I think is important too. So Cora, let us know what you find out. Anyone, feel free to come on camera too. I'm staring at a bunch of black screens and a couple pets.
Every time
Thanks,
I turn my
Daphne.
camera on, it boots me out. So
Oh, okay.
sorry, guys.
That's okay. Happy you're here. Like that, if that's working, that's cool. What else has been on your mind? There's a lot going on in the world, in the universe. The energy is like harvest time, actions, action. Jean-Marie.
Man, there's a lot going on. There is so much going on. And I think I've been just like talking about it every like live that we've done. I'm just like so much processing. And yeah, kind of feeling somewhat like speechless. I didn't sleep very well last night. So I'm kind of like struggle busting it a little bit. But I'm also feeling this like underlying not agitation necessarily, but this like unsettledness that uh feels like, you know how you gotta sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable to change your position? Like I'm in the sun and I think I might be getting burnt a little bit and I'm uncomfortable, so I'm gonna change position. It feels like that kind of discomfort of that comes with like, I don't know, shifting positions, I guess. Does that make any sense at all? And the other thing about it is that I'm also getting these reminders that, there's the like the most important thing for me to kind of center is to be proud of how I engage with this, like uh recentering or repositioning. uh so so that's fun. And that being a lot of like, if you're working through really intense catalyst that requires a lot of your attention for processing, which is great, like lots of wonderful expansive moments there, but there's so much that comes into like play, um in that your system is, I know my system is a little bit more complicated. So when I am like, going through big catalyst, usually the first thing that I don't want to do is like really engage much in the physical world and like feed myself, right? And that's the first thing that kind of falls off the uh the like flow. And so this go round of experiencing big catalyst, I'm really working on remembering to that like self-care, system care stuff so that I'm not stretched as thin. So that's what I've been doing. Like definitely feeling this shift. And then of course there's the obvious shift of my like moving out of Alaska stuff too. But yeah. Ta-da. My auntie reminded me that I need to update my like TikTok account and check in, because the last video on my TikTok account was when I was still like actively grieving and still kind of like going through it. And I'm so not in that place right now that she's like, hey, you might want to like film an update, which was really cute because it's the first time my auntie's ever like made a suggestion for content. It was adorable. Yeah, I've definitely turned the corner on the grieving and letting go like process of my like big transition. But this reorienting thing is so great. It's the best. It's so great, guys. Uh, it does make a huge difference knowing that I have a space like this to be able to just like talk through anything that does come up, if it does come up, and to know that when I'm going through big catalysts and things that require so much of my attention, my whole the world that I love dearly isn't going to fall apart because I need to give my attention to this like catalyst. I am genuinely supported, not just by this community, but by the support team at Bright and Dark. Like they truly do step in so like seamlessly when one of us is kind of going through something. So here's my moment to thank you guys. Thank you guys for all that you do in supporting this community. Really, really appreciate you. Ta-da! And see. And I am open to any questions or whatever, guys. Like my life is I'm super transparent about my life and what I'm processing. I just don't know what you guys are interested in. Go ahead, Whit.
Well, I'm going to change the subject. So if anybody has any questions, we can always jump back to. But I thought it might be fun to talk about people's thoughts or feelings or experience with ritual wear, things that you use or that you wear during rituals. I am currently, the reason why it's in my head is that I'm currently working on mine for the optominal convergence. And so does anybody have any experience with that? Any thoughts on it? What it represents? But I thought it'd be something that'd be fun to talk through. So, oh, look at that. Jean Marie, do you have any thoughts on this? Any feelings?
Do I ever? I was a professional fairy godmother for many, many years. And so making like ritual garb, ceremonial attire is like right up my alley. It's so much. I truly enjoy it. And it really can be what you wear during ritual can be anything. Like you don't even have to wear anything. Some people like that's their jam. It's more whatever makes you feel like powerful and aligned and reminds your system of like the truth of your nature. So that's obviously going to look totally different for every witch. What I like to do with my own ritual, like garb and attire, is that I usually start with like a base of some sort. So I'm like, hey, this is the cloak that I wear to all of the rituals that I do. And then every year I add more to the cloak. So it's this like growing, so that the garment grows with my practice. You see that? And then the garment also tells a story of the rituals that they have participated in as well. So you can be like this is the year that I was doing this one thing and decided to like hand stitch the trim all the way around this. And I hated my life the entire time because who hand stitches a cloak? No, I'm kidding. I'm only halfway kidding, but um yeah, I really enjoy it. I've seen a lot of like I've seen Wit do crochet for some of their like ceremonial stuff, and that is just super witchy. The knot magic and how like engaged you are with it is so cool. But it could also be like, I don't know, the biggest, poofiest prom dress you could find at the local like vintage store because it's like that makes you feel magical. I don't suggest like a lot of tulle, like the tooling. Do you guys know what I mean by tulle? The fluffy fabric that like flows in the wind and stuff because when you're by a fire, which a lot of ritual work in person has fire involved, and you don't want to be concerned about being combustible when you're in ritual. So it's pretty, but don't want that kind of sparkly. Go ahead, Maria.
So I usually focus more on the accessory bits. One, because um usually I'm traveling for a ritual in some way. So if I could kind of like get in my car and drive, um which in one ritual I did, and my outfit was way more poofier. But for the for this ritual, I have to travel and get on an airplane. So I feel like Gemini, I have like my base. I usually like to wear like a flowy garb. So I have like my base of like my black dress. And I I'm just not, there are some times where I really get into like making something, but like my level of crafting is about what we do at Witchwork Circle, and like I'm good. Like I feel like that's where my crafting, like I'm good with that. So for me, like I love to support other witches that are awesome at making it. And so what I then start to do is I feel into like there's like the overall vibe for the ritual, right? And then like what's my kind of like personal vibe? Where am I at with it? What's the season? Because I do like to incorporate like seasonal garb. Um, so like in this case, like I'm getting ready for an autumn for our autumnal convergence. So I take that into consideration. Like if I was going to wear flowers or um, my accessories would kind of be representational of the season, incorporating maybe the elements or something like that. Um, Sometimes, like one particular year, I was like vibing with a particular deity, and so I incorporated some representational things for that. But I like to then kind of seek out again witches that like do make garb and support them, and also adding to my ritual attire. So like I'm a big fan of head pieces, and so I definitely feel into like if that's something. My jewelry is all carefully considered about like what it represents. For that, my makeup, I love to do ceremonial makeup and actually have switched my whole like pre-ritual practice because I know I need like a lot of time before ritual to prepare. And so like I know like I want to be able to have like in like an hour or two just to like sit and like feel into like what I want my hair and makeup to look like for that. I'll like spend sometimes thinking about it beforehand, but when it actually comes, like so even my whole process of getting ready, I try to be like very even so like I'll have that planning process, but then it's like actually getting ready. And that's kind of part of the ritual and this whole process. And I just find that in order for me to be present, I need to like have kind of some quiet time and sit and kind of focus. And you never know, there might be some last minute like accessory changes or outfit changes, like right in that pre-process, depending on how I'm feeling into it. But that's kind of how I plan with I usually have like a base dress and then I'm kind of adding like accessories to that. Like I am a big fan of like belts and um like I said, headpieces, jewelry and what my footwear is going to be if I'm wearing footwear, what my undergarments are going to be if I'm wearing any. And yeah, and then like the hair and makeup is also for me, that's like the funnest thing. I think that's the thing that I enjoy the most. Getting ready for ritual, doing that piece of it. So it's out now I'm talking about it. That's what sounds most exciting for me. And I just feel like I can just break away from like what I do day to day and I can like just do something really that that's more like um inspired by the ritual, but like more. Like I'm free to just like do whatever. And I love that. So that's all. Renee, I think I saw your hand up, but it went back down. Whit's hands up.
Um, yeah, our my internet's bugging out, so I'm just gonna listen and let Wit talk.
We can hear you pretty good if you wanted to weigh in on anything.
Oh, okay. I just was gonna say real quick, that I just for people that weren't here when we talked about it before, one thing that I got really excited about were the hoods and the idea that if you didn't want to, participate in something, you could just put your hood up and that was just kind of you know a signal that you weren't in the mood. But so I've got really excited about looking for like a cool pattern for a hood, and so far the only place I've seen those are on Etsy, like not at Joann's Fabric. So anyway, that was just my little way in. Wit.
Um, So as we were talking to, and Jean Marie sharing too, that like I have a variety of different, like, I don't know, types of ritual wear that I have. I've got, like, I've crocheted some tops that I tend to wear if I'm doing like virtual ritual. So like I almost always have either a crocheted top or a crocheted hood on if I'm doing one of our witchwork circles, because that is for me in those moments, like that's something that I've made and it like holds that energy. And then I have, um, as a lot of us have been, I am a former theater kid, and I did ballroom dance for almost 10 years up until about 2 years ago. And we did all sorts of different shows, and like the costuming stuff is just like, um, and so like I've been having a lot of fun over the past few years of building my ritual wear, and what uh what pieces that I'm going to be adding on. Like I'm adding to mine right now. It's something that Jean Marie actually made for me for our spring convergence. And I have pieces from the very first ritual at autumnal, or first ritual at the autumnal convergence that I still wear. But then like adding on to it and building it up and really finding that character isn't really that right word, but kind of that what that, like, that outward expression of that inward feeling that I'm having, so that I can share it with those others who are at the ritual with me, of what I'm feeling on the inside. And like I think it's so cool to see, and like I love hearing about what other people find and what other people use and try out, to represent that. It's just so cool. I love it. All right, I'm done now. Ta-da.
The Cora, we were asking about what the autumnal convergence is, for the when you were asking about transitioning to winter. Yes. So the autumnal, Renee, you have your hand up too.
Yes, but I was gonna change the subject if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, and Jemery and, oh, we lost Jemery again. So the autumnal convergence started as when Bright and Dark started in August, September of 2021. And then the autumnal convergence was like a year later. So it was a bunch of us celebrating. Sorry, I'm looking at Wit. Are you laughing at me? Okay. You're weighing in. Go ahead. Was it 2020? I don't remember. Go ahead. What are you doing?
No, you're right. I was laughing at myself of trying to not burn myself in my iron while I like tried to raise my hand, and
Go ahead. I was like, what's
just my
going
own
on?
self over here.
But 2021, right? It was 2021
Yes,
that Bright and
2021,
Dark.
yes.
Okay. And so, and September 6th was our first like meeting, and that's why we're having the birthday party on 9/6. And so there were those that joined, were some of the first to join, and that the culmination of that. So, and initially it was kind of like a celebration for those celebrating their year in a day in foundations, because that was just the time that aligned with that. So it was kind of like a culmination of celebrating those witches that it was like their year in a day, finishing foundations. or having gone through the 12 months, bright and darks, anniversary, and then just celebrating autumn, like that, this harvest time, like preparing, and all of that. And so that is all what kind of is the vibe for the autumnal convergence. Now it's shifted a little bit because we don't, yeah, sure, like we still have some people that may have finished their year in a day, but you can come, anybody can come that's a member. So really is an opportunity to participate in an in-person ritual, which is nothing. I'll go out and just say nothing like you've ever experienced if you've never done it. I feel confident I can say that as like a statement because it's just amazing to whether it's no matter the size of the ritual, it's like we've had our two different first year was at one location. Now we're going back to the second location, which is exciting because we can enhance it, knowing where we're going. So it helps like WIT and the planning witches to do that. So yeah, I WIT or Gemry, do you want to add like what the autumnal convergence means to you, what that represents?
I
Or
would,
Kim's
Yeah,
here too.
I would
I
love
am.
to, but I have dog.
I can jump in. I got
Okay.
it. Yeah, so when we're thinking about specifically like the energy that we are focusing on and the energy of the ritual that we will be doing, it's a celebration of community because we are actually able to gather together and celebrate that. Um, and then the other part of it is like really raising that energy and kind of fine tuning throughout the weekend the energy that and some practices too that you could take with you into that inward turn for the winter. So really like kind of that focus of what can we do to prepare and like kind of build that energy and some things that can assist us going through that inward turn during the winter. So that is kind of the general energy that we're looking at doing as we are planning events and different like activities that we're going to be doing, as well as the ritual. So I'm excited. I'm getting fine tuned in on different parts of the ritual and things that we're going to be doing over the weekend. So there's a plug. Tickets are still available. It is we can't guarantee lodging anymore. Those kind of the guaranteed lodging what ended yesterday. But if we get enough people who still buy tickets and want to come to get another house, then we'll still able to do that. We just want to make sure that we are not kind of over committing ourselves to locations that we can't, fill. So hooray for that. Also, just a side note too for our spring convergence that we did that we will be doing again at some point. But it was really our theme of the ritual was dance as or come dressed as the whatever your childhood or whatever your little you thought was like the most powerful. So Maria showed up, she left, and then she came back and she showed up as Glinda, and it was the most magical thing ever, and I freaking loved it.
And that was unplanned, the leaving and coming back. So that's what I mean. Like things just happen and you never know. And it's funny because when I came back, Ezra was there and they didn't know that it was me, like for the like till the end of the night. So yay, magic. Okay, thanks. Renee.
Well, Maria just reminded me of something. One of my friends said on Facebook, everyone should wear tiaras as much as possible. Like, don't wait for a special occasion. Just get a tiara on your head and wear it. So I totally appreciate that. I think that's super fun. What I was gonna say is, like one of my little experiments I've been doing with myself, is just I've noticed since I've done the shadow work how less triggered I am by so many things and how like my need to engage or like share my point of view or argue or whatever, like it's like at an all-time lifetime low, I would say. Um, but one thing I do to kind of test myself is go on like a Facebook kind of like a public witch page and just see like how crazy some of that stuff can get. And like I don't engage in it. Some of it makes me really sad. And I was just gonna say one of the things the other day that made me sad was someone was talking about, oh, I think it was like a poll. It was like people like something they believe in that's, you know, not popular. But and one person had said everything has a cost and it's going to cost you like a pound of flesh, you know, and it just reminded me how happy I am that I'm in this group. And no one, you know, it's interesting too because it seems like I see a lot of I would say like bad leadership outside sometimes, you know, and like bad advice. And again, I'm just thankful for this group and that it's like we like I feel like this group is about solutions, not problems, you know. But yeah, it is interesting because it's an interesting place to people watch, that's for sure. I don't know if anybody else does that, but uh yeah, that's and I've been just reading a ton of books lately, but and I'm gonna do some book reviews at some point, but I don't know if anybody else has their hand up, but I'm gonna hop off.
I'm jumping up in here because no one else is up here. We have an hour of time still to like talk. And what did you like? Were you wanting to add on to what Renee was saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Jen Marie did tell us, she did warn us that she was gonna ruin us for like all other like witch group stuff and rituals and things, because this is like the best that we can get, you know.
I think I think that is true.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to add. It was just, you know, how you were ruining us. So
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm totally ruining all of you for any of those like control-based social groups. Like, ugh, isn't it great? So, what I was going to bring up also is another thing that has been coming up so much in my life right now. Like, obviously, because I'm in this process of like purging and letting go of the things that don't want to come into this new life that I'm starting, right? And I've described it like as kind of like Marie Kondo, but not quite in that way. But there, I have, I recognize that I have come into so much deeper alignment over the course of this last like 6 or 7 years that there's a lot of like things that I have held on to that just aren't they're not in alignment with how I currently like engage with my world. And just the minimizing the work that I have done in like really paying close attention to things like my sensory load, what I expose my system to as far as sensory load, has made it to where I'm able to, ask things those questions and get clearer responses because I don't feel as like distorted by the stress of like this like underlying sensory load. Am I making sense, guys? Like, can I get show like hearts or something? So I'm not like diving behind the veil and leaving everyone behind. And so for that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my path, especially the last like 6 months, has been so focused on my relationship with everything that I keep close to me and the things that I engage with on a day-to-day basis. And the word things is a little like it's starting to become ick a bit for me. And so I'm like actively looking for another word for that other people are actually going to understand what I'm talking about. So all of the stuff that I have purchased to become a part of my life, I'm realizing that the more I have, the more I am responsible for. And even though something is tucked in a closet, out of sight, out of mind, your system still feels the responsibility in some way, like that cluttered closet that you think about every like, or guilt yourself about every 6 months or so, or every time you open it. Like I've found that there's a part of me that is aware of that, and as I'm going through things and letting go of things and like bringing back a balance, I don't know, it feels pretty great. Which is very tidy to be going through this part of my spiritual practice, or this facet of my spiritual practice, in a time that I am actually like going through that tower moment where I need to actually like look at how much I can sincerely and authentically be responsible for, and in a way that is allowing my whole system a place at the table when I'm making decisions about taking on responsibilities. And like I'm finding that some of the things that like I would have brought with me they're breaking. Like I have a ceremonial chalice that I've had probably for a decade and have used in so many different rituals, and like it's been this whole thing and it broke. And so now it's like, oh, okay, well, you're clearly communicating with me that I need a new like ceremonial goblet of some sort when I get into this like new world, aka an RV at Kim's house in Kim's backyard for now. So yeah, this has been a really interesting process, looking at all of the projects and things that I like acquired to create a project and then not like finished them. It's not that I have a bunch of projects that are unfinished. I've finished a lot of projects, but it's interesting that I'm finding it interesting the projects that I didn't finish. I'm just like going to say that. And I'm wondering if some projects aren't meant to be finished, and if there's a way to like determine that before you go investing in a bunch of fucking materials. If only. But yeah.
So there. Ta-da.
It's so hard with the whole ADHD hyperfixation thing, right? I am actively trying to be mindful of when my system or brain is going into a dissociation, right? Or trying to dissociate from my experience, because I want to start using dissociation as a tool actively and on purpose, and it not be a part of my autopilot trauma response, right? So I'm looking at changing my relationship with that like dissociation thing. But I realize that it's really hard to determine the difference between inspired action when it comes to like creativity, or if that creativity is like a trauma response. I'm noticing that it's tied in there, because if I can jump into some like project, I like, yeah, using dissociation as a tool. Yeah, we have dissociation is a powerful tool when you are experiencing massive catalyst that is maxing out your sensory load. But when you are using it every day because you don't want to engage with your life, or you are only like partially engaging with your life because it's so much of it is overwhelming for you, when we have that urge to dissociate, it's because we believe something's overwhelming. And if something is overwhelming, it actually needs our attention to like mind what responsibilities we've taken on, right? What am I exposing my system to that is putting it into overload, to the point that I'm having to actively dissociate every single day just to get through, right? So but when you are experiencing like massive catalyst, like a big tower moment, and you're processing your emotions as much as you can, and you are being as present as you can through the process, sometimes you need to dissociate for a little bit to get some space from that experience. I tend to try to go to like a grounding kind of practice first now, once I notice that I'm reaching, because dissociation is like it's a coping mechanism, right? And so when I reach for something that is like dissociative, like scrolling, or I would say like watching TV or something, is often like a dissociative thing. That is when you check in with yourself, when you start to reach for that, I want to do this, and you ask yourself, okay, why though? Like, what's going on? Am I overstimulated? Am I overwhelmed? Let's try some grounding. If after grounding and everything, you're still struggling to just kind of like keep that presence, then using okay, I'm going to set a timer for like 30 minutes and I'm going to dissociate, and I'm not going to guilt myself about dissociating. And then choose your favorite dissociation tactic, right? At least that is what I am doing during this process of really intense catalyst. I'm trying to, because coping mechanisms aren't bad. They're not wrong. It's when we are having to use or are using coping mechanisms every single day just to get through life, and we're not questioning why. what's going on that is like making that a state that we crave. I want to build personally, I want to build a life that I don't want to dissociate from. I want to create a life that it is exciting for me. I want to create a life that that when I am on my deathbed, I'm not asking myself what would it have been like if I'd have just gone all the way and done the thing that I, you know, like was afraid of doing. What if I'd have just done it? I don't want to dissociate from my life. Ta-da! Just as the neighbor starts their tractor.
I think that just kind of jump on to what Jen Marie said. I think that sometimes we all go through these like different catalysts and use whatever we have in our toolbox at the time to kind of go through that process. And so when we like collectively talk about these things, I just felt I wanted to share that in this space, there's never any like guilt or shame that is associated with like if you are dissociating, like if you're dissociating every day, that's just like where you're at. Um, and the best place to start is exactly where you are. And so um, it's like just recognizing that which you feel no longer serves you or is no longer working for you, and then seeing like what you want to do, from there, which is why, again, I say this like 5,000 times, but it's true, is why like the foundations is kind of set up the way that it is with the journal prompts. And so we can take like bite-sized pieces, especially like during this time of the harvest. So we can kind of do things in a way that isn't like overwhelm. I mean, things can come up that might seem that way, but that we can do it in a way that looks at these different parts of ourselves each month in a way then also can coincide like with whatever ends up being your practice, but like the shadow work being a big piece of that. And so that's one of the reasons too why foundations is 12 months, because sometimes, going through this process, it is like you just getting bits of information and things. But when you do it intentionally and when you do it in community, what I have found is things happen just a lot faster, like a lot faster than when I was doing it on my own. And so that's one bit about like doing things in this type of a community space. I mean, especially with magical people, that things just seem to happen faster. But what is time anyways? But it feels faster. There was a question in the chat, Coral, I think it might have been me. We had a book reviews. Back in the day, we had like a book club. Who knows, you never know what will happen if we'll have it again. But I mean, certainly if you feel like you want to post like a review, you can just do that in the courtyard in the chat. If you want to do it in the courtyard chat for everyone to see, or the foundation's, chat for the members, you can absolutely feel free to just do that whenever you want. If you feel like something really resonated with you or didn't, whichever way. Yeah, the ADH fixation thing with like one my mom like gave me this piece of advice like a long time ago, and I kind of use it if I can. But it's like when I get like when I feel like I need these 5 things for this, and this is exactly what I need, and I need them like right this second. And I go down like researching things for hours and hours and hours. Um, my mom had said like just leave it. Like, so I do like the famous screenshotting or whatever, and if you still really feel this strongly about it the next day, and so I try to like use that and it does help. And then I just end up with a bunch of screenshots like we all do in our phone, but it saves me from purchasing sometimes. So at least if I take a picture of it in my brain, it's like, okay, I've documented it and it's somewhere that I can go back to.
My problem is that I dive into and I actually get going and I try and I'm like, oh, I'll just use the stuff that I have. And then I get really into it. And then I buy all the stuff. And then it eventually goes away. And then I don't want to get rid of it because it usually comes back at some point too. So I call it my
Yes.
ADHD fixation hoard of just.
Yes. One thing about being a witch is there's not a spellcraft on the planet that you can't find that stuff for. So it's just finding it. Where it's just finding it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, Renee.
Um, so whenever Maria has said harvest today, there's something that's kind of pinging in my brain. So in Alaska, we don't have a lot of crops. Like when I visit Minnesota, there's just crops everywhere. And I remember at the end of a season, there were a bunch of people out, in the field, and I'm like, what are they doing? And my mom's like, oh, they're gleaning. And I'd never heard this term before, but now I think about it all the time. And it's basically when, like if they go harvest corn or potatoes or whatever, and they usually use kind of big equipment, and there's a lot of good food that's left over in the field. And so gleaning is just letting people come pick up the stuff that is just going to be left there anyway. Um, and or it's not worth the commercial farmers time and money to go pick it up, but I was just like, oh, that's really cool, like I really like that. But then at the same time, part of me is just I think people get so like possessive of things. Like I could see, like at the same time, it's like I see no trespassing signs, and I could see like food going to waste because someone doesn't want strangers out on the land picking up the food. But I'm just really fascinated by gleaning right now. Like I think it's actually it's like a biblical thing. There's like biblical laws that basically say like you have to let poor people glean in your fields. But whenever I hear the word harvest now, like that really is just popping up in my mind, and I'm not really sure why. But I think it's interesting, and again, it's just one of those you know ADHD rabbit holes that um you know your brain latches onto and then can't ever let go of. But I think it's very like community minded, like community gardens. I love all that kind of stuff. And it seems witchy to me. So I didn't know if that was, I mean, obviously probably everybody knows about this except me because I'm from Alaska, and like I said, we don't really have like crops here. But um yeah, and I don't even know why I brought it up, but just it keeps like, also I just love the word glean. Like it sounds magical, like it sounds like it's like sparkly, like a sparkly word. um John Marie.
I'm figuring my shit out. Hold on, guys. I'm almost there. Okay, I can't figure out how to put my hand down. But I love this, Renee. Okay. So if you guys are cool with that, let's go through what gleaning would be if applied to like your spiritual harvest, right? Because gleaning is a thing in the physical world. Uh, and I love that this is a rabbit hole you're going down, Renee, because it's awesome. Because I grew up on gleaned food, and there's a lot of programs in Oregon that they'll even donate food that is close to expiration in some stores and stuff that you can go through and like that. But like, what is that like? What would be a gleaner for your like spiritual journey? And so I love that this came up. It's awesome for me because I keep getting poked so hard to like share this experience and what I'm going through and all of this stuff with like everyone, and to be telling the story. And it's hard because as I am processing this, to actually explain, how I'm processing this big like life change and everything, which is a spirit part of my spiritual practice. It's a hard thing to like think about and to do, but I'm still getting poked like super hard by my guides to fucking do it anyway. And for you to bring up gleaners about it, it's because when we share our harvest, when we communicate the things that we are learning from our journey with our community, they are able to glean from our harvest. They're able to support themselves to get what they need uh, from the like work that we're doing. And so for me, like that was really, I'm taking that as like, thank you, Renee, because I'm taking that as a sign from my guides, and like this little personal aha moment of fuck, my guides are assholes. But at the same time, there's value in sharing our experiences and our authentic experiences with each other, even when those experiences aren't like, you know, entertaining or oh man, what I just got was that it's not my business what a gleaner is doing with the I know, real time stuff, guys. That was great. It's not my business what the gleaner does with what they're gleaning. It's important to them for their own reasons. Yeah. Is this a glimpse of what my life is about to look like, guys? Like this super transparent, fun stuff. Ugh. Anyway, that was fun. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Renee, for leaning into sharing that, because that's fucking magical shit right there, guys. You just made sense of my like a big chunk of my process, yo. Like you don't even know. All right. Ta-da!
Renee.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like this is like the gleaning space, right? But also, when Jen Maria said like it's not my business, I don't have to know what they're doing with it. But part of me just goes, I want them to make a cake. Like I kind of want to know. Like I kind of want like I want to know that it like turned out good, you know. But yeah, yeah, I just it's funny how much gets said here that like just sticks with me and gets incorporated into my brain, and I really appreciate it. So
Hey, Karen.
Hi guys. So this is just a change of subject. Is everyone good with that? Okay. So I have been going through a hard time. I had COVID in July. I had to let go of one of my familiars. I am not losing a best friend, but like my oldest daughter, who's 21, is going to college across the country. So we won't be close, and we're working through that, but it's sad for me. And I realized that through that whole thing, I have actually been experiencing depression. And because of the help through tarot, which I'm just learning, and the workbooks that I worked on this morning, it helped me realize I have been in depression. It just doesn't look the way it used to because I am healing. So it looks different. I didn't recognize it. And that it's okay. And there's no shame in the depression house because we all know what that looks like. um, and just healing and do what I can today. And another best friend's coming tomorrow night and just spending time with us. And that's okay. The house won't be clean and it's all good. And it's just feels good. So I just wanted to say thank you for the community. And that allows me to say this. It allowed me to acknowledge it, and it is helping my depression because it the way it looks different is that it's less. I didn't go as deep. I didn't go as dark because of the work I've been doing since February, and it just feels good. So I just want to say thank you. And anyone's happy to weigh in if they have anything. I was just taking that moment to be grateful, be joyful, celebrate, like all of it. All of it. Yeah. So anyway. And oh my God, the rocks. Like, does everybody else collect a whole lot of rocks? I have so many rocks. I'm trying to clean off my dresser while we've been meeting. And I literally am standing here with 2 handfuls of rocks going, I don't know what to do with them. It's like jars. Anyway, sorry.
I'll jump in here. Yes, rocks. So many rocks. I always come back from any trip that I take or any hike that I do. I'm like, oh, look at that, rocks and sticks. Sticks are another big thing of mine. Love me a good stick. I will drag the biggest stick home. Ask my husband. It's a thing. But Karen, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Like it's really cool to hear. Like I know I've experienced something similar with that as well too, of like when I'm feeling sad or in like probably a depressive state or going through depression, it looks completely different now than what it has in the past because of the healing that I've been doing and looking at it differently too. Like I don't look at my feeling sad as a bad thing anymore. I
true.
see it as like a sacred healing feeling, now is it, yeah. And like, now, do I still have times where I'm like, I don't want to be sad. This is why am I sad? Of course, I'm only a few years into my, healing of almost 40 years of social conditioning and whatnot. But I forget about that sometimes too, of like the almost awe feeling that you get, the awestruck feeling that you get of like, oh, this is different. And look at that. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that. That's so cool. And let's celebrate with you. Yay!
Yay. Yeah, it doesn't feel like the depression was bad. Like a bad thing. I am working to stop that good bad thing. It's just acknowledgement that, yeah, life can get hard. period, right? Like you have to process it. And I process through I process deep, heavy things in a depressive way. But it's getting better. I'm learning to do it healthier and in a way that's not as dark. And I feel really good about that. And I think that's, yeah, thank you, Whit. I'm with you. Oh, sorry, am I supposed? I'm checking. Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody else is. Okay. Yeah, so I'm good.
Thank
If
you.
anybody else wants anything in our last 15 minutes.
For anyone like watching the replay, I think sometimes this kind of come up, before, and it's like when we are working through whatever it is that's coming up for us in the moment, and bright and dark can be such a huge tool, and the things that like we're learning and experiencing to kind of go through, but also like whatever other tools, that are out there that, and this is more for like, and just anyone listening, um, I know there's like a lot of talk in spiritual platforms about, medications versus non, and different utilizing the medical community or not, and things like that. But I think it's important to utilize whatever tools that you feel you need to support yourself. And I know a lot of us here share that. We don't, whatever tools that people decide to use, whether that be medication or a therapist or doctors, in addition to like what they're doing in their spiritual practice, is perfectly okay. And whatever people to decide, because you know best what is right for your system, not anybody else. That's all. Soapbox over.
That's a great point, Maria. I've started taking a medication for my anxiety, and it's it's been interesting because it has, for me, everyone's different, given me the opportunity to process things, because my anxiety was actually so severe that it was keeping me from processing. It was keeping me stuck in the danger zone, I'll call it. Everything was a danger. And because I was able to kind of release that grip, I've been able to benefit from the foundations more. And the community is definitely making everything go faster. I think it was Whit that said that. That's totally spot on. Or maybe it was you, Marie. I don't know, whoever said it. And yeah, I've been amazed at my progress. So for me, it was a combo, but it still took me 14, 15, no, 45 to 56. What's that? 11? 11. It's still, I didn't take the medication for, I didn't try it for 11 years in my process. And I've been in therapy for a very long time, longer than that. So yeah, but that's just what worked for me, everybody's different. Everybody, and then, yeah, right. But it's just another tool. And yeah, anyway, spot on.
Thank you. So we do have 15 minutes left. If there are anything that's on anyone's mind, you want to share something, ask a question, change topics. Coral?
I had something happen this week that I had a thought like 3 years ago that this person was going to come back into my life. Like this person I just kind of casually knew. And I was like, their daughter's going to need to come see me professionally at some point. I had that thought 3 years ago. And then this week I got that call and I'm like, of all the things to have a premonition about, like why that? And I was just curious, like, how do you figure out like what's a premonition, what's a random thought when you have it?
Great question. Taryn. And then I think Taryn was first,
I
and
just
then
have
Wit.
quick. It's just I was kind of rumbling with that same question, actually for Bright and Dark, and always just like, well, how do you know if it's a coincidence, or maybe it's just this, or you know, just always doubting, not wanting to believe, and then I was questioning that, and literally got a message that and I won't say it right, but you'll get the gist. um, like it was telling me like how long are you going to keep saying it's a coincidence and not just believe that it's the universe talking to you, or your system or your guides, or however you connect. So that was just my recent that. So I just kind of, now it's like, okay, I'm paying attention.
Thank you. Wit.
I don't know if you saw me, but I was giggling when you asked that, because it's like, well, how do you? It's always a great question, right? And what I have in my experience and what I've kind of learned over the last few years is most of my random thoughts are some sort of knowledge that I'm getting, um, and it's really how I'm applying it or how I use it, that's important. Um, and so repairing your relationship with your intuition and like a feeling, or whatever it is that you get. Sorry, just lost my train of thought. I'm gonna pass it off to you, Maria. I lost it. It's gone.
She'll come back. So, yes. Love the question. I think people will answer it differently. I would have answered it differently a couple years ago. One is, it's my take on it, is it's all magic to me. And so what I do is, though, I feel into if it's a fear-based or like anxiety coming up, I know that that's more something that's fear or anxiety, like with like that for me is coming up. And I don't utilize that as like messaging unless like in actual real life, like I'm in danger and fear and anxiety is coming up and I need to like get away, get to safety, then that's different. But like when I'm sitting here in my room and um, you know, how if I do have um a thought, I think that I recognize that there's a feeling signature that I get associated, and it's hard to like describe, right? I think I probably a lot of us struggle with like how to describe that, but it just seems highlighted. So like the fact that you kind of like remembered it, it just seems like, oh, taking like it just seems highlighted, or it felt like significant more than just like a passing thought would. And just like we kind of talked about earlier, like, right, sometimes you don't know in that moment. And then sometimes something happens later and you're like, oh, that was what that was all about. Okay. And so what I just started to do is like when I feel that ping or feel something highlighted, I just like pay attention to it and just be like, oh, and just sometimes I might feel into it for more information and sometimes not. It's something like if you are a journaler, that you can like start to write down. And then as like a data collection, just kind of see. I think like we were talking about in another SAS too, and I know Renee commented like on like premonitions. Yeah, and that sometimes feeling like we had a premonition and then maybe engaging with some like pressure that we needed to like get a message to someone or something like that. And for me, I've kind of let like that go. If I'm talking to someone and I want to like engage with them, like what I was feeling, then I do if I feel like I can with that person. But if not, then I just kind of like make a note that like it just was like something that kind of came up. But I don't feel like pressure or something to like get messages to other people because everyone has their own guidance system as well. And so I like trust in everyone's own guidance system also. Um, I hope that made sense. And Wit has their hand back up.
I think I didn't actually put it down, but that's okay. That was clearly my way of saying, come back to it. I think, Maria, though, that you kind of hit on what I was thinking about too, of like sometimes the messages that I get or the intuition, thought, downloads, whatever you want to call it, like that pressure of being like, oh, I should have known that earlier, or why didn't I listen to that, and done something on it, is usually pretty, well, I like to shit on myself a lot for that. But really it's more of just like focusing, like I focus on that relationship with my intuition that helps me in those moments of knowing, oh, okay. And almost sometimes it's like I feel like it's the universe giving me like a validation too, of like, oh, I do know, like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, or I kind of, oh, I called it. Is like a little like boost for myself in my like believing in my intuition of like, oh yeah, that's right. I did kind of feel into that or see that. And so sometimes I take it as a little bit of validation for myself as well too. That's not really originally where I was going with this, but that's what I have right now. So ta-da! Here we are, and I'm muting myself now.
That help, Coral? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if anything, it kind of was like, hey, these thoughts you have in your head, like you do have premonitions, just so you know, like you should probably pay attention to that. So I think it was kind of feels like a sign from the universe of like, yeah, you have this thing. It is weird that you know things, like weird as in like I don't know, it's a gift. And so I don't know, this week it really brought it to my attention of like, you know things and you think it seems obvious when things happen, but that's not obvious to everybody. And so, yeah, it's definitely giving me more to think about of like, okay, now I want to feel into it as my gift. And yeah, I think I'm going to start writing it down when I have these thoughts, like they're not just random thoughts, write it down. And then maybe I'll start seeing the pattern of then how I can use that information.
Yes. And I like what Ezra put in the chat too about as you go through shadow work and unpack the things, that conditioning, which may be separating you from your intuition, you'll be able to discern with more and more clarity what feels true, authentic to you, and therefore reality. Thank you, Ezra, for that. And weird as in magical, yes. All right, witches, we have just like 4 minutes. So if there's any final weigh-ins, otherwise we can just start to wrap it up. Petra, hello.
No, I came in late because my body decided I need to sleep all the way in today. Which makes sense. We have forest fires here. So it's like the breathing and the being outside and all the things that give me energy are like less. Like, oh. I just wanted to I mean, y'all know that I'm like kind of the boundaries person, where I'm like, hey, you're allowed to have spiritual boundaries. So I wanted to say that with premonitions as well. Like, I'm someone who I used to get like death premonitions for people, which is really unnerving. And I had to set some spiritual boundaries around that and around just the things that I was getting premonitions about. And one of those boundaries was basically like, if I can't change it and I can't do anything about it, then I don't want to know about it. Because I was like, this is not good for my mental health. This just makes me terrified all the time. Like, unless there's something I need to say to the person or do before that, like, you know, specifically around the death premonitions, I was like, I don't want to know. Like, I'm happy to just be as surprised as everybody else, because this is like terrifying and like unnerving. And you're like, what the hell is happening? So if there's any things like that that are coming through for people, you're allowed to be like, hey, here are the boundaries around how I'm going to receive information. I'm not open to this type of message. Or here's my boundary around, I will receive that message, but only under these conditions. And your spiritual team will respect those things. So I just wanted to say that, because I think it can be really scary and feel really invasive and intrusive if you're receiving things that feel distressing and thinking like, oh my goodness, I have to do things, or I have to whatever, or da-da. It's like, sometimes the only thing you quote unquote have to do is say no. You're allowed to do that and be like, I'll pass on that. Not at a place. And you can always, the thing that I know is that you can always reopen the door. You're allowed to like change the architecture of your boundaries with things and be like, actually, now I do feel like I'm in a place where this is stuff that I want to know for whatever reason. So I just wanted to say that. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Petra. That's going to wrap it up, which is thank you for coming. And we'll see everybody again next week. And of course, feel free to post, like if you've had thoughts after this or more conversation, feel free to post it in the app and we can continue on until next Sunday. All right. Bye, everyone. See you later. Have a great day.